begin with the prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. So we begin with this prayer, Sahana Bhavatu. This has a psychological implication. See, in the Gita, Sri Krishna is using some words. They have got so much psychological impact. Like when he says, "O Kaunteya," Kaunteya means he is referring to the relation he has with Arjuna. So I am your relative. You are my auntie's son. So from that perspective I am talking to you. Bharata, you are a descendant of great tradition. So reminding him of the great lineage. Arjuna, reminding him of his friendship, his friend Arjuna. Like that, one after another, each and every word he uses to address Arjuna has some psychological impact in the context. So the Sahana Bhavatu also has a psychological impact. I will reveal the secret at the end. You have to hold your curiosity. Yes. Suspense. Now, this power of habit, this is actually a very, very big topic. Very big topic. There is a book, a big book written by Charles Duhigg. Charles Duhigg, H-I-I-G, on this title, The Power of Habit. The first effort of this kind. And a wonderful study of the science of habit. And I will refer very heavily to that book because it is a very modern approach which affirms the discoveries of the scriptures in our tradition. So I would like to refer to that. First thing is that it is a big thing in our life because our life is nothing but a bundle of habits. This sentence someone said, I could not find the reference in the Google, but I read it somewhere long ago. Someone said that we don't live on this earth for so many days, but actually speaking we live only one day and repeat the same day so many times. That is our life. Life is a repetition of a set of habits. We may change habits, but then again we go on repeating with the new changes. That's all. So it is just a habit. If we analyze the whole life, we will see that it is just a habit what we do. See what is called life, daily life. From morning till evening, all these stories same, nothing new. And some efforts are there to change our habits for good or for bad also. And from bad to good and from good to better also sometimes. So our study is on the basis of this, mainly how to get rid of some bad habits. They are consequences of our creating impressions on our mind which has a very long-term effect on us. Long-term effect. Not only it is bad impressions are bad in this life, but it may be bad in the next life also. So we must be careful. must be careful what we think, what we do, because if we repeat those things, then they will create an impression, and then that will create a habit. So there is a statement by Benjamin Franklin that habits are mostly based on our understanding of our own self-worth. How we value ourselves, we form habits according to that understanding. So he has said one's net worth is equal to the good habits minus bad habits. When you deduct your good habits or bad habits from the other one, what remains is the net value of yours, and that is our value actually. And Swamiji has very clearly said, Swami Vivekananda, the habit is our second nature, but he said it is our first nature also. First nature means the impressions, tendencies we are born with. Each one is different because of that. We have our different sets of impressions which we carry forward from our earlier life. So that is the first nature. And second nature, what we accumulate in this life through our practices, repetitions. So the value of our self-worth. And these seem to be very old discoveries in the scriptures. But I will be referring to this book to show that they are not like discoveries by the scriptures, they are rediscovered by the modern technologies, modern mental science. That is very amazing. The same thing they are saying, and strikingly similar things they are saying. So how much we value ourselves, that is the first condition of forming or getting rid of habits. How much we value ourselves. And there the Upanishads come to our help, because Upanishads speak of our real value. If we look at Shankaracharya's interpretation of the non-dual philosophy through the Adhyasa Bhashya, the introductory discussions in the Brahma Sutras, which is known as Adhyasa Bhashya, he says that we actually equate ourselves or our self-worth with our extensions. So the Adhyasa is extended. So I think that this body is me. So my worth is transferred to my body. I think that my relatives are me. I think my wealth is me, like that. So he speaks of the Adhyasa, how it slowly gets diluted, and then we find our value in the extensions, not in our own self. So the real value lies in understanding our self, not with what we are related. That is a great discovery even in modern mental science. But look at what Shankaracharya has said. It is very wonderful that when we give, there are three types of extensions. One extension is like a partner which will leave us at our death. Another extension is like a partner which will follow us to our grave. And the third extension is like a partner which will change partnership after our death. Yeah, we find a new partner immediately. So who are they? Our body is our first partner. It will leave us at our death. And second partner is our relatives. They will follow us to our grave to see securely that this fellow does not come back. And the third partner is our wealth. It will change hands after we are dead. So there is a funny story somewhere. I will be just keep holding back the names and places, names of places to myself because it has some implication. So someone told that one relative passed away, so he wanted to donate the books the relative has left behind and also some clothes. And then then I said, why don't you keep? Because these are memories of your own people. So you can keep, you can use them. No, we don't want to remain obliged, so we want to give away everything. And so we want to give away the books, the clothes. If you are interested, we can give you the books. Then I said, okay, that is one good idea, but what about money and the house? Money in the bank and the house. Are you distributing those things also? Then we are also there.
Interested.
So, but those things are there, they are not obliged. They don't remain obliged. These are all cheating ourselves, So many ways we dilute our values. So Shankaracharya gives this warning that we extend ourselves in so many things. There is a nice story told by a Zen master. It comes in the life of a Zen master that he had many students, and the students used to observe the teacher, what the teacher himself is teaching or preaching, whether he in his life following those things, putting those things into practice. And then they observed that the teacher is very much attached to a dog. And he used to take care of the dog, feed the dog, would be worried about the dog, all these things happening. And but he teaches very high philosophies about taking care of one's own self. So Zen is like jnana, thinking of the self. So they became very curious why this fellow is so much attached to this animal. And the Zen master understood the doubts of the students. So one day, one student took courage and approached him and said, why your mind is so much entangled in this thing, while you are thinking of the self or something beyond? And then he says, oh, you will see, that is a nice thing to practice. Now see what this dog can do. So there was in the evening there was the moon shining in the sky. Then he called the dog and said, just fetch the moon for me. Then the dog looked up and jumped. Dog cannot reach the moon. So the dog failed. And then the Zen master looked at the student. The student was laughing. Funny, stupid thing you are doing. The Zen master said, what did the dog wanted to do? Do you know? He said, yeah, he wanted to fetch the moon for you. No. He wanted to reach my finger. I was so impressed. He wanted to reach my finger. So, that I wanted to practice, that we should not be stuck with these things which are here. Look beyond these things. And that is the real thing which we want. So I remind myself every day of this thing through the dog. That's what I do. So we are stuck with the finger actually. You just look at what Shankaracharya says. We try to find our value purpose here in the finger, not there. So Shankaracharya and the Vedanta spoke about this real value of ours. If we do not understand that, then the value is transferred to things which are just our extensions, and therefore our habits will be created according to those values. This is very serious thing, and this is very real thing, practical thing. The very harsh truth, we have to face it. How much value do we give ourselves? And that is what Benjamin Franklin has said. Your net worth is equal to your good values or good habits minus your bad habits. The balance is your net value. So this is the first part of this. So Swamiji says that the habits are our nature actually. Not only our first nature, second nature, but our first nature too. So take care of the habits. So when we start with small habits, practicing small habits, either to get rid of a bad habit or to inculcate some good habits, when you start with small things, we will see that the whole nature in a way come to our help. That is the law of nature. I remember Swami Swahanandaji was asked in Dallas. The devotees asked that is it true that when that Vaksiddha, when some people who are practicing yoga in their life, they speak something, even if that is sometimes absurd, but that those things come true. How does it happen? There are some mythological stories, we know, that somebody spoke something which was really absurd, but it came to be true. Because why? Why do they say, why is this the phenomenon? So Swahanandaji gave a startling answer. That is the answer I was trying to find, search for, but I could not. But he gave that answer, and that is what is said in the Yoga Sutras also. That Prakriti Apura, there is one sutra that Yatha Kshetrikavat, that if you have a small field and you have put your seeds there and you want to irrigate that one, just make cut the boundary at one place, and the Prakriti you will feel it, because water is all around. The water will automatically flow into your field. Just make an opening. Do not raise walls all around. Just one small opening will help you to irrigate the whole field. You don't need to do anything. The Prakriti is there, available everywhere. So, if a person has practiced yoga, the first thing is that his wish has become one with the wish of the Prakriti. That is the truth. His wish is the wish. So that is the idea of this collective unconscious, cosmic mind. What do you think? They say, in psychology they say, if you ask a question to someone, don't think of the answer, because then the wavelength will match and that person will get the answer quickly. So think of the wrong answer and you will struggle with it. So this speaks of the cosmic mind. So the person who has raised the level of the mind to that level, to match with the Prakriti, he has acquired mastery over the Prakriti. Therefore, whatever he thinks, that comes true. The Prakriti comes to the help and supports it. So it is like that. So habits are also formed that way. We just begin with a small thing, just kick start it, and then the chain reaction starts. That is the idea of habit. Like a chain reaction, it starts. And it goes on increasing and increasing by itself. You don't need to do anything about it. It just takes off. So there is a wonderful small book, many of you must have read, that Who Moved My Cheese? Who Moved My Cheese? Just a few pages of the book. How the habit is formed. Wonderful description of that. That there was a mouse, the colony of mice, and then one fellow one day discovered the storehouse of cheese. Then the mouse, he came and then ate some cheese and liked it, okay. And the next day he came, he ate something and went back home with some good variety of cheese as gift to the people who at home. And then slowly it went on and on and on, and then he grew a habit, and not only grew a habit, he grew a ownership on the cheese. My cheese. So, you want good cheese? Come with me in my store, I will give you. And then he used to call the friends and bring to the store and give his cheese. So, how the habits are playing tricks with us. And then slowly, he knew this is a secured life. It is, the supply is always there. Who gives that supply? God knows. Prakriti is fulfilling the wish. So therefore, the cheese is always there, and he does not need to go for work. He forgot about all the trainings, etc. And then he was very happy leading a easygoing life, cozy life, very nice, rich person. But suddenly one day, these owners of the cheese store thought of moving the store to some different place. And it is gone. Overnight, the whole ownership is lost. Next day he came and saw, there's nothing, everything is gone. He was very upset. And then And then others, they were more pragmatic, more practical. They said, okay, all right, since it has gone, let us try to find out some other source, and otherwise we move away from this locality and migrate to Washington DC or something. So like that is practical. Then they, one by one, they start, because supply has stopped and they have forgotten to work because they were getting all the inheritances. Without working, they could get money and inheritance. So they want to work for it. But slowly, they understood that it is not possible. So they started moving out of the town, went to other places in search of job and other things. But this fellow will not go. He said, this was my cheese. Then he asked, no, I don't want to go. I want to see who moved my cheese. Who has that much audacity that to move my cheese like that. So, habit creates a false kind of ownership. And therefore, this is, as we have been discussing in the morning, so this is another case of that we depend on some false ownership. Then there was one Griffith Wilson, I think William Griffith Wilson, who established this Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a big world famous organization, Alcoholics Anonymous. I saw their branches in Berlin, in Switzerland, other places. Many Germans, they volunteer in that organization. So this William Griffith, he was called Bill Griffith actually. His name was William Griffith, but he was called Bill Griffith. So Bill Wilson, not Bill Griffith. William Griffith Wilson, he was called Bill Wilson. He became an alcoholic at a very young age. And then he had many friends. As soon as you become alcoholic, you will have the same type of friends all around. So in New York, he used to live, and then it was one evening that he went to his store. Some days he had a very good buddy who used to come and drink with him. But several days, for a month perhaps, he was not coming. So that day he appeared in the evening when he went down to the cellar and just drank one peg or glass, I don't know. So he drank that, and then he saw that friend entered there. So okay, so the friend entered there, And then his friends sat across him at the table, and this Bill Wilson, he offered him a glass of wine. Then he said, "Thank you, sorry, I don't drink." From when don't you drink? You are a drunkard, and how you become so sober? Then he said, "For the last 1 month." "And you say that you have become sober?" "Yes." "How could you become sober?" Then he said, "One day I saw God. So I asked for his help, and he came and helped me. So, and with his help I have become sober." You are telling mythological stories. I have seen all of my friends, including you. We tried, but we could not become sober. It is not that easy. And God came and helped you. That is very good luck. And then he went away, but this Bill fought with himself. He is not a man, Miss Fred is not a man who would lie to me. He did not touch wine which was offered by me. That shows that he has really become sober. How is it possible? Then he went through a kind of revelation actually that happened in the life of Ramana Maharshi in respect of spiritual revelation. Here also a kind of revelation happened to him, and one day he was under the grip of a tremendous pain and he did not know what to do, and he knew that he had to go for the wine and then it will be, his pain will be relieved. But it could not go. No, he did not resist that temptation, but he could not go down. But then that time he experienced something, and that he says that he saw God. In what form God knows, he did not elaborate on that, but he said yes, he had experience that some big power helped him. Therefore, he established this Alcoholics Anonymous organization to help the alcoholics become sober. Now, this he tried, and there was a lot of success. Now the problem is, there is a kind of rehabilitation therapy, scientific approach towards this. And their success rate is very low. Because in Germany itself, I know some people who spoke about the story of the alcoholics, their own relatives, who went through all these therapies and finally died of this alcoholism. And died very pathetic deaths also. So the success rates here in this Alcoholics Anonymous, they call it AA. AA success rates were very high. So scientists from Harvard and other places came to check with them what they are actually using as therapy that they are getting such success. And then they studied, they had some 12-point program or a kind of oath, that 12 oaths one has to take, 12 kind of guidelines, 12-point guidelines, yes. 12-point guidelines where they checked that of those 12 points, 7 points spoke of God. Then the scientists said, this is just a cult. There is no scientific approach to it. This is just a cult. But then after several years, they could not deny the success of this cult. It may not be scientific according to those scientists, but the success was true. People becoming sober in a very higher rate. So that they could not deny. And then it has spread all over the world. Now it is a huge, huge organization. So, this is the power of habit actually. All those 12 points, we will discuss on this later on. All those 12 points, though they speak, 7 of them speak of God, but they create a kind of habit, and that power of habit brings about a change in the whole life itself, because life, as I have said, is nothing but a bundle of habits. So it has to be practiced. Habit means it has to be repeated and repeated again and again. So you see to what level these habits can take us. There are so many examples. I saw a YouTube video, you can see it, it is still there. There they tested with one ordinary footballer and Cristiano Ronaldo. So they tested something with both of them, and there they have found that the system was that someone will be kicking the ball to the player, and the player has to put that ball into the goal. And when someone kicks the ball, immediately after that lights will be off. And then but with the help of sheer imagination, this person has to put that ball into the goal. So this ordinary footballer, it was tried with him first, he failed. Then it was tried with Ronaldo, he just did it in darkness. And then again the next step was that football will be kicked in darkness and it has to be put into the net. And as usual, that ordinary footballer failed. But this Ronaldo succeeded. Everything happened in pitch darkness. All the lights were turned off and the football was kicked. And this time he put the ball into the goal with the help of his shoulder.
Wow.
It came so fast, he could not position himself. So he just put the ball with the help of his shoulder. But he knew where the ball was coming. Where? At the exact point he put the ball into the goal. So that shows the power of habit. There is no mythical story involved in this. One can see it in the YouTube. So this is how the habits work. And what do we want to build up the habit? For good or bad. It either destroys our willpower or builds up our willpower. This is the contribution of the habit. It builds up our willpower, as we said, that when we practice with small bit of strength, and then it builds up our willpower, that we can do it. Similarly, if we just go on practicing something which is not good, then it destroys our willpower. So, it builds up our willpower. There is a great story in America. Because this book is written here, so he collected some examples from the stories here. The story of the Starbucks. The Starbucks, that is a great story because the Starbucks owner said, we don't do business on coffee, selling coffee. We don't do coffee. We are not at coffee business. We are at people's business. We are at people business. And he said that we take care of the customers. Our employees take care of the customers to bring some kind of solace to their life in whatever way possible. That is actually what we do. And as part of it, we just sell coffee. That is not the main purpose. The main purpose is to help people. So what way they train the employees, that is a wonderful thing. What way they train their employees. Sometimes, in the coffee shops and other shops, I have seen in the supermarkets, people go on shouting at the ladies or people at the counter. Actually, very weak people do that. They are low paid and they undergo a lot of stress. And they have to work very hard, and they are being under the scrutiny of surveillance cameras. And there you show your heroism. That looks so cowardice. So people try to take advantage of their helplessness. So when the customers come, the employees are the most vulnerable people. You can complain against them, they will lose their job, and all these things happen. So people tend to shout at them. Why do they shout at them? Because they are disturbed already. When they come for a cup of coffee to get rid of some kind of tension, not all of them, but some of them really come for that purpose. But you don't know who is who. So therefore, it is not natural that they may shout at the employees. Starbucks' great contribution is how to train those employees. They have no control over the customers, but how to train those employees. There is stories after stories, how they became successful and became a model in this respect, training the employees. They will be sitting together. How they are training, they are sitting together at a table, and a new employee has come, he is to be trained, and some of the old employees will start using so bad, filthy words against this employee. This is unbearable sometimes. But see the power of habit. Days after days, this training will go maybe 6 weeks or something like that. It goes on, and then this person gets immune to these things and know that, okay, these things are mechanical things. So this impression is carried outside, and when they face the employees who are shouting at them, they'll smile at them and be very polite and very helpful, and that changes the whole situation. And that brings so much solace, mental solace for these customers who come disturbed. And that is a great contribution of the habit. These people are trained into this, and practically training with the help of abusive words, so that you don't get disturbed by these words. You have heard a lot of things. So you have suffered a lot, so no more suffering is possible to disturb your peace. That is the thing we learn from that book, that there is a famous book, the Man's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning, that is Viktor Frankl. He went through the traumatic experiences in the concentration camps, first in the Vietnam, and then that Auschwitz, and then here in Dachau, near Munich. He went through the traumas and the sufferings. One great sentence he has written, that if you do not find meaning in suffering, it is useless to suffer. And that is why people went and committed suicide. People think that people wanted to escape the concentration camp torture, therefore they went through the electrified barbed wire fences, and then they were killed there. But no, they wanted to commit suicide, so they touched those wires and died, because they did not find any meaning in that suffering. Suffering has a meaning, he says, and he is the authority to say that. He has the right to say that, because none of us can imagine that type of suffering in our life. So these words are coming from the mouth of such an authority. Therefore, these habits, they actually find some kind of meaning in all this process, that we are trying to develop a habit by practicing something which will bring some kind of which will help some people, and that becomes an impression in our mind, and that remains, and that becomes part of our character. So it helps us to train up our willpower. That is the idea, that all these things help us, habits help us to build up our willpower. That is what we are lacking actually. So therefore this is a skill which they call life skill, training in life skill. These habits which help us to develop bring growth in our life is called life skill. That is taught, and through this life skill, one thing we build up, and that is what is called willpower. That every one of us lack. And willpower is nothing but actually self-discipline. This is the great truth actually. Willpower is nothing but self-discipline. It is just, we will discuss this point further, because this is one of the things which we have to develop to get rid of bad habits and also to build up our good habits. And the willpower is, it is difficult to build up willpower. This is also a truth. And why? Because the habits which are being created with the help of our families, schools and societies, the habits, the second nature which is being formed, the habits which are being created with the help of our families, our schools and our societies, those habits are meant for devising robots, not humans. A little bit adjustment is not possible. Everything is programmed. The programs, the software is programmed, and that guides our hardware, the body, the man. That guides. We don't know how to make adjustment with that. And as we were discussing, if a blow comes, we just break down under that because we have never learned. Our software did not have that program in us. This is a kind of mechanical thing which it has produced. Therefore, we do not build up our willpower. The life of a robot is different from the life of a human being, and we have not developed an interface between these two. From the very beginning, the second nature is such, and first nature too. That is our character. Our character is built up. The software is built up in such a manner that it addresses the robotic life's problems, which are all programmed, as if all the problems, whatever you face, that has already a program to solving program inside this. But we don't know how to address the problems of life as such. Life of a robot, life of a human being, that is fine. We are programmed, we are trained in some art. But we have never created an interface between the programs which are meant for the robot and our own programming. That program of life. That interface we have to find out. And now there is a nice example in medical science about the orthopedic patients. Those who are heavily injured or suffering from heavy orthopedic suffering or problems. Now with them it is a reality fact that even to start with a habit is difficult. This is one problem, a challenge. To move the hand needs a lot of effort. Not only willpower, a lot of effort. So painful to move a portion of the body. How to do exercise, that is different thing. To move itself is so painful. But they have tested this with these patients who are not able to move. Moving itself is a big thing, big suffering. They have tested two things are necessary, and that is because of the willpower it is possible. One thing is that if they have got some kind of inspiration, some inspiration should be there. This is the inspiration this Bill is talking about, what he got. He became sober overnight. So this is a kind of inspiration which is necessary. I will give you an exact example what they have cited there. that the inspiration is necessary. And second thing is called preparation. Inspiration and preparation. And both need willpower. Inspiration, what type of inspiration? That one example just will suffice to tell you about what type of inspiration is necessary. In spiritual field, in all field you have got different types of inspiration. Here this inspiration is like this. One gentleman suffered multiple fractures after a car accident, multiple fractures, and then he was put in a rehabilitation center. It was very difficult for him to move about, and therefore he was just lying down, and slowly when he was recovering, he was able to go 1 or 2 steps like that. And his wife used to come to meet him at the place. Almost every week, once or twice, she used to come after her work. Then this information was given to him that his wife, he can go and meet the wife. But wife has no time because she has to go and do all those sorts of things and then come back next day to work. So if you can go to the station or to the bus stop, then for 5 minutes you can meet her. That was the inspiration. He wanted to see her, his wife. And that one inspiration helped him to find a purpose. That there is a purpose in his going to the bus stop. So he found the purpose to go there. He started going there. But then there are periods of trauma. Sometimes suddenly a pain comes which becomes so unbearable, he may fall down, he may injure him further. How to handle that? That was very simple. That was very simple. He took a preparation. He took some painkillers and some sprays with him. In the pocket. He has everything in the pocket. And very rarely he would suffer from that trauma. Sudden pain will come and make him completely paralyzed and he becomes helpless and falls down. That did not happen actually. That purpose gave so much strength to the body. And then this peak moment of pain, that did not happen much because he had a preparation. Mind knows that there is something, okay, let me fall down, I will spray it over. So it is like that. So one is called an inspiration and second is called a preparation. The inspiration has got very inspiring stories everywhere. I will give that same story. That is from the life of Thomas Alva Edison. As you know, he did not go to school or university, but he was the greatest scientist. So in his childhood, one day he came back from school and then he gave a letter to his mother saying that this madam has given this letter and it is for you. The mother read through the letter and the face became very sad, and then he asked, what is there in the letter? He said, your madam writes, your son is a genius and we do not have proper teacher to teach him here. Teach him at home. So what a great thing. The mother hugged the son. Then Edison said, that is fine, you teach me. Then he was taught at home. And after many years he became a big scientist and all the successes came and his mother passed away. He was cleaning up the things what his mother left behind and he found that letter from the mother's things. And he was very curious. He thought of going and meeting that madam who predicted that he would be a genius. He did become a very big scientist, so he wanted to see that madam. But then when he read the letter, it was something different. The letter read, your son is mentally ill. We can't teach him. Don't send him back to school. That's all. So Edison sat there and cried for 2 hours. He cried. Then he wrote in his diary that Edison is still the same mentally ill child who has been converted into a genius by a hero mother. That's what he wrote. So inspirations have a big contribution, and those things we get from the scriptures actually. Saint Teresa of Avila says at one place, Saint Teresa of Avila, she was a Christian saint, woman saint. She has said, when we speak to God, we speak through our prayers, and when God speaks to us, He speaks through scriptures. That is true. So all the inspirations we get from the stories, from the scriptures. The life stories are bigger scriptures actually. Holy Mother was there in Udbodhan house when the Pujari, the Swami who used to take care of the shrine, used to do puja there, he fell sick. So they sent a Swami from our headquarters, Belmont, to take care of the puja. So this Swami was doing puja, and as usual, those who are familiar with the life of Holy Mother, she had attendants and they are very great people, like Golapma was there. She was always ready to tease others. So Golapma just came and wanted to tease the Swami and said, "Oh, well, Swami, you are here doing puja. How do you like this place?" Then the Swami was very blunt. He said, "I don't like this place. I like this place because Mother is there, that's all. But I don't like this place." "Why don't you like this place?" Golapma wanted that he would say, "Okay, Mother is there, nice place, you are there." So but he did not say that. Then the Swami said, yeah, Mother is there, but there is no study of scriptures, etc. In Belmont, every day we used to study scriptures. Here just nothing is there, only Mother is there. Then Mother reacted and she said, "Well, my son, what is there in scripture? Read the lives. Read the lives. You will get inspiration from those things." And you see, Sharadananda has written the great life of Thakur. I make someone read it out to me every day, some pages. Read lives, you will get more inspiration from that. And these are the scriptures. So these are the lives which give us really big inspiration, and from that we can learn how to form habits, because these are all very practical actually. So how to bring about a change in our habit? We started at 2:30. I have to go further long distance. Okay, then I will try to cut short the story. Okay, there are a few things which help us to create or dismantle our habits. Actually speaking, we don't need to get rid of any habit. We just need to change the direction. That's what Swami Ramakrishna says. Give a U-turn. It is there, therefore why should you spend much force to get rid of habit and get engaged with that only? To get rid of something means you are engaged, indirectly engaged with that. Why should you get engaged with these bad things? Just leave it alone. It will take care of itself. Use the energy, give a U-turn, and then you will find success. So there are 3 ways how to change habits. One is by force applied. That is what is called therapy, scientific therapy. They use force, means they ask you to quit. And then second is with one's willpower. That is very difficult. That's possible. Earlier one is also possible, that is also possible, but difficult. The third one is with the help of a group. Group dynamic is a huge thing, we don't understand. And that's what is being used by these Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the thing, group dynamic. They use this dynamic, and then the people will sit together and they will discuss about their successes, failures also. I tried this way, it did not work. I am stupid, I don't know how to manage it. Like that they go on talking about their failures, their successes, and they just talk. This way what happens, the peak moment of the bout, when it comes, they forget about that. They are discussing something different. They forget about that bout. The peak moment of pain. That is somehow avoided. So two things are necessary to get rid of the habit. One is called practice. Get rid of habit or to form some habits. One is called practice. Another is called preparation. Preparation means preparation to take care of the bouts. When those things come, how to take care of that. And that is not being taken care of by this scientific therapy what they use, rehabilitation therapy. So, and this is, I come back to that idea that this is the contribution of Yoga Sutra, Vedanta, everything, all these philosophies, Vedanta also. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tad nirodha, Yoga Sutra says. And Sri Krishna says in the Gita, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grijyate. Vairagya means what? The path I was following. At 10 o'clock I used to go to the liquor shop. That time I will go to something else. You don't need to go to God, but you need to go to something else, not to the liquor shop. That's all. Just change the direction. So that is what is called renunciation. Renouncing the bad thing for the sake of the good thing. That is what is called renunciation. Abhyasa vairagya. Grow detachment to that alcohol shop. That's all. So it is like that. Abhyasa, continue practicing this thing, that practicing something which is good, and that is taught by the Alcoholics Anonymous in these 12-point guidelines that mostly mentions God. So practice that. There is some big power which is coming to your help. And second thing, the practice that something better thing you will be doing, so that when the bout comes, you don't think of that. You are engaged with something else. So abhyasa vairagya abhyam. So abhyasa and vairagya is necessary. That is because to take care of this peak moment. That is the necessity. And because these things were not there, that is why these failures came. One lady was speaking about her husband. She comes to our class, she is 90-year-old, she comes by bicycle, German, that is when she comes by bicycle. And Americans and Indians would be coming crawling, maybe not. So, but she comes by bicycle, and then she was talking about her husband, and she herself tried, she could not actually help him that way. And he went and attended a therapy that was not successful. He again went back to the old habit, and one day they found him lying the roadside. No, police informed them that he is dead, lying on the roadside and with a bottle in hand. So like that. So the stories are so bad because the practice of detachment, practice of renunciation, vairagya is not there. So passivity, in one sense it is called passivity. So get engaged with something. It may not have some big meaning, but you are engaged with something different. And the Alcoholics Anonymous, they keep people engaged with this. You go on talking about nonsense. Or it does not make any sense, but you go on talking, I tried this way, that way, just get engaged. And that way they become sober, and the success rate is really very high. So this meditation, repetition of mantra, means japa, these things are to be done again and again, repeated, because that should be a part of our daily routine, that should be part of our life. And then only they will help, otherwise not. I tried only 10 days, that did not help, and therefore I tried with something else. That does not help actually. That does not help. Sri Ramakrishna says you start digging at one place and you, after 10 feet you did not get any water, then you will stop there and go to another place. So in 10 places you have dug at least 100 feet, but at 100 feet at one place would have brought you water before that. So that is how all our efforts go in vain. So habits should have a purpose, a goal, that inspiration, and then preparation. So this is practice. That's something I need in my life, and that is a greater purpose. And second thing, I want to get rid of this peak moment. When bouts come, then I will be able to take care of it. That is in the scripture, in the Vedanta scripture, this has a big place. That is Vyuthana Samskara, they say. You go into Samadhi, but you come back. Why? There is a samskara which pulls you back. How to get rid of that? That is a big training in Vedanta. So when you are practicing Vedanta, you go into Samadhi, you don't come back if you practice that. So the practical life will be impossible, so do not practice Vedanta. That is very harmful. So thank you very much. Already we have done. If you have any question. Yes, Elena Belina. Will you ask any question? Yeah.
There are two little pieces which I didn't get the full words. You said, Swami Vivekananda says that habit is not only our second nature, but also our first nature. What does that mean?
That I have already explained.
Yeah.
First nature means what we inherit from our earlier existence, from our earlier birth.
That's the first nature. And that's also, habit is made up of that too.
Yeah, habit makes those impressions. Yeah.
The second one was Saint Teresa of Avila. We talk to God through prayer, and God talks to us through
Scriptures.
Thank you.
Okay, Swamiji, you talked about willpower and somewhere where this is something which we need to inculcate, right? And in our daily lives, it's, as you said, the kind of education, the way we had got the upbringing, it's very difficult to come out of that robotic mindset. And wherever I have read from philosophers, including Swami Vivekananda or even great warriors, what they call about their lives, most of the time it comes that all those great men have gone through real pain and suffering. And Swami Vivekananda says that from his point of view, pain and suffering should not reach to people, but it is only in that pain and suffering where the light comes. And it is somewhere in that consistent, you have to be consistently consistent after that to understand the meaning of it, and as you said, understanding, giving a meaning to suffering. So my question is, in our daily normal life, is it somewhere we need to go outside of that daily normal life to gain that willpower? So example, like in American culture, I like these people where they mostly have habits outside of their normal profession or daily living of their husbands, wives, children. We talk about climbing. It's an amazing adventure game here, and I have read about some of those climbers. Many people think they're crazy, and recently, a couple of great climbers who are like demigods, equivalent to Sachin Tendulkar in our country, they have died in early age of 40s. People think that they are crazy, people who are doing some adventure. When you talk to those guys, they say that we have got self-understanding and awareness from what around the world when we go through that. When you are at the tip of a precipice, it's all only your Zen-like focus and your total self belief in yourself, which takes you from one step to other. And so, do you suggest for us to come out of those normal loop? That's like, for me, it's a habit. Every day morning, I wake up, I have my kids, I work for them, then go to office, come back to office, watch some TV, and do some, maybe in between some yoga or some meditation, and then keep getting that loop. Somewhere do we need to go outside from that from that loop and really try to make ourselves work out of our comfort zone and go into those things where we are not in the comfort, and then gain that experience and build our willpower?
Yeah, that's what I have in that book. man's search for meaning.
Yes.
He has said that the meaning of the suffering lies beyond the electrified barbed wire fences of the concentration camps. Your freedom lies beyond that. If you think of freedom within this limitation, then it is not freedom, limitation only. So there is a purpose beyond this whole program of this life, and then that gives a meaning to life. Otherwise, the same, the animal's life and our life same actually. So therefore, we have to find a purpose why we are human beings. And yesterday we discussed why we are called Homo sapiens, because we have started asking questions that who we are. That question we asked, that is why we are called Homo sapiens, wise people. Are we proving true to that we could call ourselves Homo sapiens? Did you ever ask a question about ourselves outside this robotic programming? So that gives a different dimension to our programming of this life. It is not that we have to dismantle everything or refuse everything. Everything will be there, something will be added to that. So to give it a full value. This is one thing. Other things, searching for meaning in something which does not contain that meaning is just like searching for this in logic that you are trying to search for a black cat in a dark room and if a blind man is trying to find that, this is a very difficult proposition, and that cat is not there, first thing. So all these searches are useless. So you can draw examples from many people. A great psychiatrist, psychologist who has written books on psychology ends his life committing suicide. And you know of Karl Marx. He had to invest his money in shares to survive in his old age. So this is what type of philosophy they preached. Against capitalism, but invested things in shares. So therefore, they failed their own philosophy because there is no permanent solution to that through that philosophy. Therefore, people may find meaning for some time, but at the end what happens? That is the test actually. So a saint is actually praised when he is no more there. You can't be praised that saint at that moment. So these are things, but add some value to it. Whatever is there, that is fine, that is not denied, but some more is necessary to give value. Then we will be able to face challenges in life which come in the form of blows or failures. We do not break down under pressure. If we are prepared on life skill, not the robotic skills, then we do not break down under pressure. Yes.
So still, I mean, little bit confusion. So
Yeah.
do you still have to go out to seek it, to seek that pain, to seek that suffering, to seek that some activity, just like I said about climbing, people do here, right? So the different, you have to cultivate those habits somewhere to be consistent, the word I say.
No, just I interrupt you here because I don't go further. Here the suffering is not the criteria, it is not the criteria. If it comes, you find a meaning in it.
Yes.
That is the thing. It is not that it has to be, that is why I said you form some good habits or dismantle some bad habits. But the way is through positive thinking, through good habit. That is the idea. So, yeah. One of our Swami used to say, the spiritual life is not accidental. It may be accidental sometimes, but it is incidental. Yes.
Maharaj, I had a question. Now, we were in the beginning. You mentioned that the net worth of a person can be essentially equated by the total number of good habits
minus
the number of bad habits. Now, how do you categorize or define good and bad in this case? Is it more at a personal level, or is it, going back to the question of what is ethics, and in that context, how do you categorize this?
There are some universal good, some universal bad. That is the question which was taken up by Immanuel Kant, and he came out with that, the categorical imperatives, which he calls ethical things. Categorical imperatives. The thing you can do, and you think that you have the right to do, you should allow others also to do the same thing to you. So then, and if you are able to allow that, then it is universal. So therefore, that is the kind of categorical imperative he talks about. So there are some universal values which we cannot deny, but there are some values which are local. So they make two different words they use. One is called principle, another is called value. Principle is universally applicable, and values are principles, but they are modified or readjusted according to the need of the situation. The Vedas will speak about these two things, and also in the modern day ethical culture also these two things are also said. That in the Charter of United Nations it is mentioned that everyone has the right to life. You cannot deny anyone of his or her life. So you do not have any right to kill someone. So everyone has the right to live, to life. But then after a few sections or clauses, the same charter mentions the person who will kill somebody else without any reason or not necessity, like judicial killing, etc. So that person will lose this right. So these are all dependent on each other. So the value, now it is called value, and that is universal. That everyone has a right to life, that is universal. But if you take away somebody else's life, you lose that value. So then it is called value. You lose that right. So that was universal, and it is now a value. It is dependent, means adjusted according to this. So, and also there are some other criteria to define the value, why this value should be called ethical. I will give one example. Suppose the Veda says that ma hinsat sarva bhutani, you cannot injure any life, that's all. And that is how it is, everyone has the right to life. But then advare pashum hinsat, the same Veda mentions that when you are performing a pashu yaga, there you have to use pashu, means you can sacrifice animal, because it is animal sacrifice yaga. What can you do? So this is defined by its name itself. Now suppose this is the universal law, universal ethics, that everyone has the right to life. But then why do you place soldiers at the border? The thing is that there is this meta-ethics, as we were discussing in the morning. Meta-ethics is that this person stands at the border not to kill actually. This person stands at the border to save. That is the first thing, ethical. Second thing, he acquires the right to kill someone, the intruder, who wants to kill him. This value is adjusted there. So he stands exposed to the bullets of the enemies. Therefore, he gains that right to kill the enemies. But he gains that right because of the fact that he stands there exposing himself to protect millions behind. Therefore, this value is adjusted. It has to be adjusted, and the result of this value will define whether it is ethical or not. Not the means, the way he behaves, where he stands. These things will not speak of value. So this is value, but that is ethics. And Stephen Covey speaks about this difference between principle and value in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in that book. He speaks of this value. He gives the example of a British warship which was sailing from the coast of Britain, and then it was going somewhere, and it faced an obstruction, and it thought that there was a ship in the sea, and therefore this captain of this British Navy sent signal telling that I am a British Navy, and then I am telling you just get out of my way. And then the signal came, no, you change your direction, adjust your direction. Then he said, no, it is I am a captain of the British Navy, I am telling you, ordering you, you just change your direction. Then the signal came, said, I can't because I am a lighthouse. So like the obstruction is there, but it's lighter. You have to change your direction according to that. It will not change. So that is called value. So when you are able to change your direction, because you are otherwise going to hit against the lighthouse, it is disastrous for you. So you change this, it is called value. And the lighthouse will never change, it is called principle. Okay, then we go for tea. No, one question has more than 100.